Well, Jonathan Martin and Alexander Burns are two of the best reporters at the New York Times. They've written a book called This Will Not Pass. It talks about the Trump administration to the Biden administration transition and some things leading up in that first year of the Biden administration. As fate would have it, when we sat down for our interview, it was right after that bombshell report came out from Politico, where both Burns and Martin once worked, about that leaked Supreme Court of the United States decision that would overturn Roe v. Wade. Joining me now, two authors of a new book called This Will Not Pass. They are New York Times reporters Jonathan Martin and Alexander Burns. And it is good to have Jonathan back on the show. And Alexander, it's good to have you on the show for the first time. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Roby.
Got it off the top of my head, you guys cover DC like no one else. What is the temperature in Washington, DC with the big bombshell from both of your former stomping grounds there over at Politico over this SCOTUS decision that was leaked out that is going to overturn Roe v. Wade? What's your best take on what happens next?
Well, I think that there will be an effort among Democrats in the Congress to codify legal abortion in America. That is unlikely to pass, Roby, because as a lot of your viewers will appreciate, the Senate filibuster is in place, and Democrats simply don't have 60 votes to pass that bill. So I think at that point, we'll just be in the waiting game, and we'll sort of see what happens when the court does offer an opinion, if they do offer an opinion at the end of their session in June. But I have to say, politically speaking, obviously this is going to have an impact on the midterms. Democrats have had the enthusiasm problem, obviously, and this could get some Democratic voters fired up. Obviously, could also inspire some conservatives as well. So I think it remains to be seen what it's going to mean for a political impact. But we obviously have a book out now, This Will Not Pass, and I think it sort of captures the stakes involved in politics today. And this is one more example, Roby, the right to legal abortion that really illustrates how everything is up for grabs right now in American politics. And that's what we chronicle in This Will Not Pass.
All right, Alexander, I'll give you an opportunity to weigh in on the very same topic there and fold it into what the book is doing in terms of explaining what's happening in America.
Sure. I think so much of what we do in our book is to explain and report in real detail just how divided the country is and how impossible it is for the federal government to operate and get results for the American people when the people themselves are so split into separate and opposing and in so many ways irreconcilable camps. The book starts during the Trump administration. It carries through the first year of the Biden administration. And of course, as you know, as your viewers know, so much of what Biden campaigned on was to unite the country. But when he gets into office, he's also very tempted to enact sweeping transformational policies that aren't driven by the political center, but they're driven by the really grand governing aspirations of more liberal Democrats. And he is never quite able to reconcile those two impulses.
Yeah, we talk about that a lot just in our kind of weekly conversations on this program about the fact that the president and Democrats didn't have a mandate in Congress. I mean, they actually lost seats. It made it a lot more difficult to get things passed. So therefore, this whole transformational process that you're talking about, really, the votes aren't there for something like that. Talk to me about the book, both of you, and tell me how you organized for this book. Does it go in chronological order? Is it one of these things where you did hundreds, if not thousands of interviews. How do you put all that in the right, proper place?
You've touched on a really important question, and I think that's one of the challenges we had. We had so much information, a lot of it firsthand, a lot of it primary source information. Some of your viewers have probably heard the Kevin McCarthy audio tapes out there, and that's just one slice of the sort of documentation that we have to cover this tumultuous period in American politics, Roby. We didn't want to do a traditional campaign book, in part because the campaign never really ended in 2020. We're still fighting the same red versus blue battles, and obviously President Trump did not concede defeat. And I think the other issue is, after January 6th, it occurred to us simultaneously that we were covering history at this point, that doing a campaign book would be inadequate, and that we had to cover the sweep of this period, 2020 and 2021, and really get at the aftermath of the election in January 6th. And that's what we do in both parties, by the way. We have a lot of reporting deep inside the leadership of both Democrats and Republicans.
Alexander, the book is This Will Not Pass. What will not pass?
So I think what we were going for with the title is to capture this sense of extended and seemingly endless a political crisis that, it's, I think, pretty common for Americans to hear from their leaders that, however bad things might seem right now, that ultimately, to paraphrase one prominent Arkansan, there's nothing that's wrong with America that can't be fixed by what's right with America. And I think at this point, there are some really serious questions about whether that's true. This book, it starts with the onset of the coronavirus pandemic. It stretches through the first year of the Biden presidency. And I think one of the things that we found consistently in our reporting, particularly on the Democratic side, was that there was a real expectation that once Donald Trump left office and once a lot of people got vaccinated and the virus started to recede, the country would feel really good again. And there would be a sense that, we're turning a corner and maybe not quite mourning in America, but certainly getting there. And I think there's nobody who would read that book or tune into this program who today would say that that's really how the country feels.
Let's talk a little bit about the Congressman Womack story that's in the book there. Steve Womack, Congressman out of the 3rd District of Arkansas up in Northwest Arkansas. It's what we call the land of milk and honey up there. It's Walmart world up there. Tell me what you witnessed, what your sources told you with Steve Womack behind the scenes.
Well, this is one of the most extraordinary scenes in the book, and I think folks in Arkansas will appreciate this. The Congressman Womack's a pretty down-the-line conservative, obviously military man, sort of sober figure. This is not a boat rocker. This is not somebody who's given to challenging Republican leadership. But Roby, after January 6th, Congressman Womack was appalled at what had happened that day, and particularly what a congressman named Mo Brooks from Alabama had said on the Mall the morning of the 6th, where Brooks essentially incited the crowd to go up to the Capitol and kick butt, although he didn't use the word butt. And at this point, Womack says, we have got to penalize Mr. Brooks. He's got to pay a price for this. There has to be accountability. And he goes to Kevin McCarthy and pushes McCarthy to punish Brooks by stripping him of his committee assignments. Well, long story short, McCarthy's not willing to act. He won't hold Brooks accountable. And Womack is furious. And Womack told us in an interview that he was deeply angry at McCarthy's unwillingness to hold Brooks accountable for his rhetoric. And this has shaped Steve Womack's view of Kevin McCarthy ever since. And it's just one element in the book, and obviously one that's close to home for folks in Arkansas, that captures just how tense this period was in American politics in the weeks and the months after January 6th. And also, Roby, how it has really shaped or reshaped how a lot of Republicans view both President Trump and Kevin McCarthy.
Alexander, I'll throw this last question to you to kind of ride a little bit on Jonathan's coattails there of what he's talking about. Kevin McCarthy looks like he's going to probably survive the latest controversy that he's involved in. When you look at what all's happened here, I mean, this is kind of power over politics at this point in time. It seems to be there's a little bit greater urgency to stay and remain in power and do what it takes to do that. I mean, that is part of the takeaway from all this, correct?
Yeah, I think that's right. I think it's one of the biggest recurring central themes in the entire book is people pursuing power at the expense of what they know to be the right thing to do in real time. I will say on McCarthy, just two quick points on that. It does look like right now he's likely to survive, but whether he becomes House Speaker or not is still an open question. It probably depends on whether it's a big majority for Republicans or a small majority, because there are enough people in the House Republican Conference, people on the far right like Mo Brooks, people more in the conservative mainstream like Steve Womack, who are really uncomfortable with the idea of him as, a second in line to the American presidency and the head of the House of Representatives. The other thing, Roby, that I think is crucial about this is that for the wider audience of people who might read a book like this or consume the information from the book in other ways, this is hopefully eye-opening about Kevin McCarthy. For Republicans in the House, maybe a little bit less so. That they know him as this guy who will say different things to different people, who's a real finger in the wind politician and can't really be trusted. And so, I'm not saying this obviously in defense of Kevin McCarthy, but the notion that he's a guy who's not entirely on the level does not come as a huge surprise to his colleagues.
All right, the book is This Will Not Pass. The authors are Jonathan Martin and Alexander Burns. Gentlemen, thank you for your time and your insight today.
Roby, thanks for having us. And just a real fast note for folks in Arkansas, I'm going to be in Little Rock on Monday, June 6th with Skip Rutherford at the Robinson Theater there in the River Market in Little Rock. And would love to meet you guys and talk about the book Monday, June 6th.